For any business, it's really important to understand if the business is doing well, if it is growing, if it is just doing okay and staying afloat, or if it is shrinking. Similarly, in data analytics, key performance indicators, or popularly known as KPIs, are really very important because they help us quickly see a trend and also know a status that for a predefined uh, benchmark. Now, what do I mean by each of the terms I have just spelled out? That we'll see in this block. We'll try to cover the key performance indicators and try to create a benchmark for knowing the profitability of the business. Currently, we have a cube that we have created, and we had also created in calculations. If you remember, we had the total sales amount and the cost amount, and I had promised that we'll be using this for our KPI section. Now, before I jump into the KPIs, I would want to explain four key terms here that we would be seeing. The first is the value. So the value is a measure that you would want to know. So here let's set up a benchmark, that is, we want for the internet sales and the reseller sales profit. We want to measure the profit. We want to know if the profit is growing healthy, if it is just going okay, or if it is diminishing. So let's create a benchmark, a hypothetical benchmark. Let's say that if the profit is more than 10%, then our business is doing okay. If it is between 0 to 10%, uh, for all the sales, it is just staying afloat. And if it is less than 0, I mean, if there is a negative profit, we can say that we are shrinking. So the trend has to be accordingly, and that is the status. So this is the goal. The goal is our 10% of profit at the end of the day on whatever sales that we are doing. So we have set a value, we have spelt out goal, we have also spelt out status, and then we would go and understand the trend. So trend is as simple. We would simply want our business to grow, isn't it? So what we would say is, if anything in any point in future, I mean, say as of today, if the profit is more than yesterday's, then we are growing and the trend is positive. That's it. And if it is less than yesterday or less than anything in past, we are diminishing. That's all. So having said that, let's try to jump in KPIs and try to set up a simple KPI demonstration in this blog. To start with, it is advisable for all the terms that I have used in KPIs, we create a calculated member, because that will only be very helpful in drawing the KPI for us. Let's see how we do that. So I start with a calculated member. I call a new calculated member. Let's call it profit val, and as we had said, we'll just be getting the percentage of profit, and so that is nothing but the sales, the difference of sales amount versus, so that is all. So total sales amount minus the cost amount, that is the SP minus CP by CP in our mathematics, maths terms. So that would be the thing, and into 100. So we want to get a percentage, so I format it to 0, and so that's all. I leave it here. Now next, what we do is we draw another calculated member and we call it goal. Let's put it a numeric hard-coded 10. We say that the profit goal is 10%. So we can call it a profit goal as well, so no harm doing that. Again, let's format it, and that's all. Next, what we do is we create a new calculated member, and then we have to call it status. In the status section, what we would do is, as the status would be our status of the way we want to see, I mean it would be a value between -1 and 1. So the status is when we, as we have defined, let's say when the profit value is less than 0, profit percentage, it's a negative growth, and when it is between 0 to 10, we call it an okay growth, and if it is greater than 10, we call it exceptional growth. So we have assigned three values, that is -1, 0 and 1 for each of them uh, here. uh, so next what we do is we create one more calculated member, and let's call it trend. And for the trend section, what we as it was for status, the trend again would have a set of three valued between -1, 0 and 1. What we will see here, what we have written here is the current profit. If the current profit is less than for anything in past, the value would be -1, that is we are negatively, the trend is negative. If it is equal to anything in past, it is a 0, that is just staying afloat. And if in any other scenario, it means that it is growing, so the value is healthy 1. So that's all this means. The important thing that here you would want to notice is how we are getting the past members value. So what we are doing is we are using the dimension dim date calendar value, and we are doing this for calendar, and the previous member we are using the prev member function here, and we are trying to get the past values as well. So we have created 4 calculated members: profit val, goal, status and trend. Status is there is a difference between status and trend. Trend is simply we are just trying to know uh, of the current status, current value against anything in past, while the status is a benchmark that we are trying to measure against. We would see the detail when we build the KPI. That was just a reiteration for you guys. We've done that. So now let's process this cube and then proceed to building our KPI. So because we have created the calculated member, the KPI is a cakewalk now. So it is a good idea to create the calculated members in the form of the 4 segments that we would do for KPIs. So we create a new KPI, and then let's name it profitability. We call it profitability. And now let's, as we've seen, so here we are going to have, if you see, all the 4 are mapping perfectly. We have the value, we have the goal, we have the status expression and the trend. So starting with each of them, let's use the profit val, the profit goal, the status, and then the trend. So status indicators is a very attractive way. So it simply has a sign, and similarly the trend also, if it is upward, downward, or just doing okay, we'll see that. So the KPI is ready. So those were the things that we have to do for the KPI, and it's perfectly ready now. So let's process this. And we are done. Now let's browse the KPI. So we have created some filters, so let me just reconnect. So let me delete each of them and start afresh. So first of all, let's use the ship date. Let's use the calendar year equal operator, and then let's call it for 2006. So as you can see, the status is 1. It says 1 with a green sign. That means the value, the goal is to have a 10% profit. We are getting an 11% of profit. So It's great. Now let's try to take a look for some other year value. It is just 10%, so the value is a 0. Now let's try to take a look for the other year. It's 19%, combined it's 18%. Now let's also try to take a look. We can actually change this to date key, and then we can go and dig it to some date combinations as well. So let's say we select a couple of dates here. Okay, we get a 70% of profit for these days. Let's say for one day we get a 69%. So likewise, as you can see, let's also add product here now. Okay, we call a product. We can check out for one particular product. On these days, or let's change this to year on the whole. See the status, currently the profitability, as you can see, is minus 6%. That means, and the trend also, the arrow and the trend also, so we've seen that it's going down for this year for this product. So my friends, this is a very cool way to, instant, and that would instantly grab your eye, and it would show you quite clearly where you're heading towards. So there is a status which is against your goal, and there is a trend which is against the past values that we have created, uh, or with the help of calculated members. The only point that I would stress on is when you use KPIs, use calculated members, that because that will make your task really easy and handy. I hope these key performance indicators are now clear to you, and it is helpful, and this video is quite helpful to you. Thank you, friends.